Okay. Okay. So we'll get started. Good morning and thank you for joining me. So I'm Charlotte Clark. I run the Happy Human Project. I may have had communication with you before if your child attends or has attended any of our sessions. The webinar this morning is, I'm aiming for it to be around 35 minutes long. I don't want to keep you for too long. But it's to give you an introduction to who we are, what we do, and also to provide you with a kind of bit of a background into what's happening for your children in terms of their mental health, their big feelings, emotional development, and perhaps also to give you a few ideas of strategies that you could use at home for things that you might be struggling with or that you can see that they're finding difficult. So we are a local company. I have been doing this since 2017. I started as a relaxed kids coach. I was just on my own, kind of going into schools, running after school clubs. I later went on to train as a laughter yoga coach and an EFT practitioner, which is tapping. And I'm currently almost finished my psychotherapy degree, where I'll become a children's counsellor. So it's been a labour of love. And within the last few years, the team has grown. So I now have 5 members of staff that work likely at the schools that your children go to, running the in-school sessions, the after-school clubs, and the holiday camps too. So yeah, it's lovely to have you here with me this morning. As I've run these over the years, I started running these webinars during COVID, and interest was really high, and it's just kind of picked up more and more because I think schools are much more aware now of the impact of, trauma, but also the difficulties that COVID brought around. But sadly, we are also seeing children's behaviour is worsening for some children. Sorry, I'm trying to admit that other person into the room and I can't do it. Do that. And so I think where schools are seeing difficult behaviour, they're tying that with mental health, for better or for worse. But it does mean that we're kind of being brought in, which is a really good thing because we can support the children. But it's not all about behaviour. Obviously, we know that behaviour is how children are communicating that something is bothering them, like an emotion, like an experience that they found difficult. So that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today, and kind of how we can approach that, how we can support children. So as I say, I'm going since 2017. We are preventative, and by that I mean we're the bit before therapy. So a lot of schools use us for the children who are showing worrying signs, perhaps low self-esteem and confidence. It might be children who are quite anxious. We often work with children who struggle to come to school for whatever reason. We also work with children with much higher needs, but I think the kind of one main thing to say is because we're preventative, there's no child that can't benefit from what we're doing. And so in that sense, if your child's been selected for our in-school sessions, especially because the schools tend to pick those children for various reasons, it's never anything to be overly concerned about. It could just be that the school have kind of pinpointed them as a child who could benefit from learning a bit more about their brains and their emotions and how to manage them. And we often in the beginning say to the children, it's a real privilege to those children who are chosen, because we know schools don't have money. Everything at the moment is more and more expensive. And so unfortunately, we can't help every child, as much as that is the goal. I hope we'll get there one day. So those children who are selected, we say to them, this is a real privilege. You get to come out, miss half an hour of your lesson as well, and get to come and have fun. But you're also learning something that every child should learn, because it's just like, you go for a run when you're being unfit, you're feeling unfit, and learning how to look after yourself is at the bottom of everything we do in life. So essentially what we do, we teach children to sorry, every time I've got somebody in the waiting room, I could do with an admin person, I think. There we go. So we're teaching children self-regulation strategies. What that looks like is a combination of mindfulness, which you might know as things like breathing exercises, but also giving them an understanding of their emotions, why we feel what we feel, especially for children, why those feelings are so big and overwhelming, and also helping them to embody those feelings. So we know that emotions are very much physical, and the more that we can get children to connect the two, I'm feeling angry and my hands are feeling really hot, the easier it is for children to start to recognize when they're starting to get overwhelmed. I'll touch on that a bit more in a sec. So this is one of our termly webinars. Should have been done much earlier in the term, but it's been a very busy start to the year, so apologies for that. And yeah, I mean, this webinar I'm hoping will kind of give you more of an introduction really into what we do and how we do it. If you have any questions after this, you're more than welcome to email me. I'll leave my contact details at the end. Okay, so that's just a bit about us. This is, I'll just start with our work in schools. So the schools we're currently in, Abbots Langley, Camp, St Peter's, Bridgewater, Berners Heath, Howard. Most of those schools we've been working with for several years now. Some of them are a bit newer to us. But what's really lovely is they're all schools that really value the children's mental health, because the little money that they have could go elsewhere. And instead it goes to us, and it's a real privilege to be working with them. So the setup of that program is it's a 12-week program. So we'll work with children for a term. So yeah, we're currently in the second half of this term. Usually those groups tend to be anywhere from 6 to 12 children. We keep them quite small. And we work with the school in terms of how they put together a group. Because sometimes we'll have a group of girls, and it might be a group of girls who are struggling with confidence, self-esteem. And what's nice about that is we can tailor the sessions to those groups. We've had groups of boys who may be struggling with things like anger and how to express that anger. And you can imagine those two sessions are quite different. So the general layout of a session, again, is very fluid depending on the kids that we've got. But the idea is we take the kids from high energy down to low energy. And in doing that, we're getting them to recognize what's going on in their body at the time of that kind of bringing them down, so that they can connect back with it at a later date. So we always start our sessions with kind of a connection circle, and that's where we'll kind of introduce a topic or a theme. But what's really nice about this point is it gives the children an opportunity, if they want to share, anything that's been difficult that week. And it gives the children an opportunity to listen to others. And I think one of the most powerful things that I've realised in doing this work is just giving the children a space to hear that somebody else gets really angry and they, hit somebody or they destroy their bedroom. I think can be really reassuring to children to know that it's not just them. They're not, there's nothing wrong with them. We all get overwhelmed. It happens. Moving on to the the play part of the session. When I started this work, I essentially everything that I've created with the Happy Human Project has been because it's what I didn't have as a child. So I grew up with my younger brother was autistic, and that was very much the focus of our family. And I later struggled a lot with my being a teenager, very hard, with my mental health, really struggled with anxiety. And so a big part of what I wanted to do with the Happy Human Project was to make this accessible, to make it enjoyable, to make it something that the kids love to come to. And so that's the play piece. That's, we play games. Some of those games can be with a slight, whatever the theme is for that week. It could be that we're doing role play, which is really fantastic way of helping children to rehearse for particular situations if that's what they're struggling with. But the idea is that we want the kids to love to come, so that later on in life, when they come back to, I don't know, needing to get support, needing to ask for help, maybe needing to go to therapy, it's viewed as something that is a positive. There's a positive connection there in their brains. They want to do it rather than being forced to do it. So that's one thing we're quite hot on. We will never force a child to join. If a child really doesn't want to come, we'll have that conversation with them. And it's also about giving them a sense of autonomy. We respect that this isn't right for you right now, and that's okay. Because they're much more likely to come back, and often those children do come back at a later date. So the grow part of the session is all about the mindset, self-esteem. So we're working on positive affirmations, really helping the children to be able to speak about themselves in a positive way. Because I think a lot of things in society are telling us to do the opposite. So it can be a really difficult skill to grow. Then we've got soothe, which is where we bring in the techniques. So the techniques are things like breathing techniques, massage. Massage can be self-massage or peer massage. And again, that's all on the kids, whatever they feel comfortable doing. A lot of them love massage. Some people don't, and that's fine too, because we explain to the kids, you're going to find something that works really well for you, and others are going to find that same thing and think it's horrible and I hate it and I never want to do it again. But it's about teaching them to listen to their bodies. Your body will tell you if you're uncomfortable, and that's kind of what we want to portray in that kind of permissive environment that we're trying to create. In Soothe, we also do things like tapping, which is the EFT, emotional freedom technique. So it's a type of therapy, but the way we use it is kind of very, very light touch. The way tapping works is when you're tapping on parts of your body. Just go through a few of them. It's tapping into your nervous system and it's calming you down. So it could be that they're tapping, it could be that they're just gently pressing, or it could be that as they're applying pressure to those points, they're taking deep breaths. We definitely don't go into it at all on a therapy level. It's literally just to calm the nervous system down. And it's a strategy that I teach to teachers and schools as well, for the same reason that it can calm the teacher down, but it can also calm a class down. So it's just a strategy that the kids can use. And then we always finish a session with a relaxation, which is, you call it what you want, visualization, guided meditation, story, for the younger kids. And the idea of that is each week, gently, those parts of the session get a bit longer as the children can withstand being still for that long, being quiet for that long. And I think this is a very underrated skill that children are losing because life is busy. We've always got things to kind of distract us and keep us busy, and no one wants to be bored. We hate being bored. But actually teaching the children that it's okay to do absolutely nothing. And in the process, they can kind of tune into what that feels like in their body, is a really great skill for them to learn, and will help them at school, in life, to be able to connect with the emotions they're feeling, but also to be able to concentrate and focus, which is becoming more and more difficult for children. So we've also got our after school clubs in those schools. It's also a 12-week program. It's very different approach in that it's after school, kids are tired, kids are hungry. So it's much more play-based. The themes that we use in the 12-week program for the after school clubs are more akin to what you would probably see at a birthday party. Under the sea, we go on a pirate adventure one week, we go to the circus another week. And that's all very much of gently giving the children these strategies that they can use in a way that's accessible to them on, 3 o'clock on a Thursday when they're really tired and just want to go home. And finally, we've got our holiday camps, which we run each holiday in St Albans and Berkhamsted. They're 5-day holiday camps. Some kids come for the whole week, some kids just come for a day or two. What I love about them is we have 7 hours with the kids to do a really deep dive into whatever the topic is for that day. So this Easter is Big Feelings Camp. So we'll be focusing each day on 2 really big feelings, usually contrasting feelings. So we'll talk about anger and joy. I'm trying to think. We've got anxiety and calm. Anyway, it's all on the website. But we're also back at the Patch this Easter, which is really exciting. If you don't know the Patch, it's an outdoor learning incredible space in Berkhamsted, where we kind of have campfires and big teepee, and everything we're doing is kind of outdoor, nature-based in the forest. So if you have kids that love to be outside, that will be the one for them. It's my favourite one as well. So there's, hopefully you can kind of see that, I mean, regardless of where your child attends school, there's something for everybody. And that's kind of really what I'm trying to create here is, you know, yes, some schools will fund it and that's fantastic, but some schools won't. And so, you know, we have the camps, we have the after school clubs that can kind of hopefully give everybody something. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about the brain in terms of how children's brains develop, because it might kind of give you a better understanding of the big feelings that children feel and then how we can support them with that. So if we look at the left side and the right side of the brain, the right side of the brain is the part of the brain that develops first, because it's the part of the brain that keeps us alive. It's where that intuition, the bodily sensations live, and it's where the part of the brain that lets us know that something's wrong. We're in pain, we're uncomfortable, we feel sad, we feel lonely as a baby, so we need that attention. And it's where the emotions are. Now, the left side of the brain, which is the logical, understanding, the reasonable part of the brain, takes a lot longer to develop and a lot longer to switch on, full stop. So it doesn't fully switch itself on until the age of 7. So if you've got children under 7, you're dealing very much with big feelings, little small amount of language to explain those feelings or even understand those feelings, and probably quite likely lots of overwhelm with those feelings. So the left side isn't actually fully developed until we're almost 30. And so I think what's really useful about looking at the brain like this is, I think quite often, because the understanding isn't there, you know, we're not taught this. We expect a lot from children. We expect, you know, tell me what's wrong, talk to me, what happened today? You know, you're upset, what's happened? And so often children don't have the ability to, like you and I might, to be able to calm ourselves down and then talk it through and then say, okay, well, this was the part that was the worst part, and this is why I'm really upset. And so this is where children need a slightly different approach to managing their feelings than you or I might. Also, I think a big thing that we miss is the language. It can be, we only are able to explain the emotions that we're having because of how we've been kept in mind by our parents. If we've had parents that have been able to mentalize our emotions, you're feeling sad, you look really disappointed, that starts to grow inside our brains. But for children that don't have that, they don't have the ability to say, I'm feeling a little bit disappointed because this person let me down, and you know, that was a shame. And instead it just becomes, I'm angry, I'm sad, or I'm worried. And a lot of what we're doing with the children is trying to grow that vocabulary, because I think a big part of overwhelm for children and for adults is not being able to communicate exactly what it is that's wrong and exactly what help you need. And instead, you know, it's just explosive anger, when actually maybe underneath that anger is some sadness, some disappointment, some shame. So this comes on to our role as adults, teachers, people with more of a left-sided brain, intact in development. In order to live balanced and meaningful and creative lives of connected relationships, it's crucial that our two hemispheres work together. What that means is, when a child is overwhelmed, where have I gone? And that right side, it's almost like a right side flood, big feelings, can't cope, don't know, you know, it could even be literally over spilt milk, but it's overwhelm and they can't control that. Children need us to first of all connect with the right side of their brain, to connect emotion to emotion. I can see you're really disappointed, or yeah, that really sucks, doesn't it? That was so annoying. if we don't connect with the right side of their brain, we can't bring the left side online. So once we've connected with the emotion and the child begins to regulate, it might be that you can hear their breathing starting to calm down or the crying starting to subside. It's only then that we can bring in our logical left side of the brain, which is, how about we go for a walk? Or should we sit down and maybe we can draw? Or let's take some deep breaths, which is all very rational thinking. Children can't think like that on their own. They'll think like that with us if, first of all, we calm down the right emotional side of their brain. So in terms of calming that brain, just keeping on the time, I think a big problem that children have is a lot of, and actually adults too, I know I struggle with this, is we go through the day and where we're not catching ourselves in an emotion, like, oh, that person just swore at me in the car. It really, bothered me. We just keep going, just squash it down, carry on. We've got to get somewhere, things to do. And in doing that, we've got a lot of unfinished feelings that we're not regulating, and they build up. And usually for a child, they'll get home and then it'll explode. And they tend to be the children who parents will say, schools say they're absolutely wonderful, calm, brilliant, and then they come home and it's like big explosion. And it can be because they've managed to hold it together throughout their day. Little things have happened. It could be they were late for school and that really gave them a lot of anxiety. It could be that someone fell over in the playground. It could be that somebody said something unkind to them. And as these feelings happen, it's like a cycle where they're not finishing the cycle by regulating the emotion because they haven't got time, they don't know how to, they haven't got an adult to support them to do it. The feelings build up. So unfinished feelings, as I've written here, can look like an absolute kind of meltdown at home, but it can also be, being upset over very little things, quite sensitive, aggression, but also physical symptoms. We know that emotions are very physical, feeling sick, headache, funny tummy, or sensory seeking behaviour. If you've got children who love touch, who love to kind of be close to you, be squashed, squeeze others, it can come out in that way too. So in terms of finishing feelings, that's where the self-regulation comes in. And this is where we want children to start to be able to recognise something's just happened. It's made me feel wobbly or hot or uncomfortable or whatever it is. Therefore, I need to go for a walk, take some deep breaths, have a massage, etc. Why is it doing that? Sorry, I've lost. I'm just going to have to come out of this because I've got somebody else in the waiting room and it's stopped me from sharing my screen. There we go. That one. Okay. So in terms of finishing that feeling, as I said at the start, we tend to start our sessions quite high energy and then we bring the kids down. There's some groups who are already very high energy, so we don't have to go all the way up to be able to bring them back down. But high intensity strategies look like essentially moving. It could be something sensory where you're playing with Play-Doh, you're in a sand pit, you're playing with water. Some children love that kind of sensory engagement, but for other children, it's moving their bodies. So we know that trauma comes from emotion being stored in the body and not being released. When you look at how animals process stress, they process it through shaking. So if you've got a dog at home, you might have noticed, I don't know, cats must do this too, but I haven't got a cat. But with my dog, when she sees a cat and she has that rush of adrenaline of, I just really want to chase that animal. And I've got hold of the lead, desperately trying not to let it go. Once the cat's gone, she shakes. She's like, ugh, and then we can carry on with our walk. And the same thing happens with humans, but we don't tend to shake. We don't tend to do anything with that surge of adrenaline that we've got in our bodies. And we need to do something to dispel it. So this is why I suggest things like fizzy lemonade, where I get the kids to imagine they're a fizzy bottle of lemonade. They're going to shake, 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 and then pause, and then shake, shake, shake and pause. Tense and release is the same idea, squeezing as hard as they can for 5 seconds and then relaxing, and then squeezing their tummy as hard as they can for 5 seconds and relaxing. Very often, in order to help a child to calm down, very often we need to get them to move first. And I think that's maybe something that we miss. There's so much out there at the moment about mindfulness and mental health and just take a deep breath. And it's not always as simple as just taking a deep breath. Sometimes when you've been in such a high stress situation, or you've had such a big, overwhelming feeling, the first thing you need to do is kind of dispel the adrenaline, and then you can start to calm the body back down. It also releases the happy hormones, which is those endorphins, so you're bringing your body back into balance. One thing I would suggest with this is to do it with them, to do it yourself. I think that's something that, as I've gone along in this work, that I've kind of learned that children really respond to. I feel like that sometimes too, and sometimes I'll share a feeling or within reason. But I think it helps children, as I said at the beginning, to start to understand that there's no shame in it. You can look up to mum, who is an amazing person, but she still gets angry and she still cries and she still feels sad, because they're also starting to learn that you can deal with it too. And I think when children can see that person who is their primary carer or an adult who they look up to, and they can see that you feel the feelings and then you can manage them and you can let them go, they start to feel that they can do the same thing. So those are the high intensity strategies. And then you've got the low intensity strategies, which, as I say, I would usually do after I've gotten a child to move. When I say moving as well, it could just be that you're walking home from school, just getting the body, just getting blood pumping through the body, is always a good thing, or playing football, whatever it is the kids like to do. I've got a... Okay, so in terms of the low intensity strategies, this is all about bringing the children back down. These are strategies you could use before bed, but also to help children to concentrate, for regulating after a stressful event. So we often teach them strategies that will calm them in the moment, but also that they can use going forward. So one that I really love is the finger tap breathing, which is an EFT strategy. So you have acupuncture points on your fingers, kind of where your cuticle is. Usually with young children, I teach this as these are their magic buttons, and when they press these buttons or when they tap these buttons, their body gets a message that it's time to calm and relax. And so what we do with this one is I just get them to tap each one, and they'll take a deep breath, and then they'll do another one. And we'll keep going. Usually for some kids, just one hand's fine. But when I've got a whole class of children and I can see we're still a little bit fizzy, we'll do 2 hands. And really focusing on slowing the breath, because the slower the breath, the calmer the nervous system. You can also do that without the breath. And that's one thing that I say to the children is really cool, because if you're at school, if you're somewhere where you don't want anybody else to know what you're doing, you can just do it under the table. Nobody else realizes, but it's still kind of sending a message to your brain, everything's okay, I'm safe, and it starts to calm you down. The 5 mindful senses, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, is another really nice one that you could do on your way to school each morning. It's just a really simple way of kind of bringing mindfulness into an everyday activity that you do. And it's just getting the children to find 5 things they can see, 4 things they can hear, 3 things they can feel or touch, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. Yeah, so that's another one I think you can do for yourself. You could do it at any point. The really nice thing about mindfulness and why it's so beneficial to our mental health is that it grounds us. I think anxiety, stress comes from being somewhere else in our heads, being at that meeting tomorrow or at that thing that person said to me yesterday. And mindfulness brings us back now, where things are okay, I'm safe, my body's okay. I'm around people that love me, and it gives you that reassurance. I've also put down here things like drawing, colouring, where children have the dominance of their right side, of their right brain. That's where the creative stuff lives. And so often, particularly in more of a therapy setting, where I'm working one-on-one with children, so much of it is in the unspoken. It's in play. It's in drawing. It's in squishing Play-Doh or playing with zoo animals. Because play is how children communicate, because of the lack of language that they have and the lack of kind of rational, reasonable thought that they have. So often I'll say to parents, if you have children who just won't talk about it, they just won't, I can see something's bothering them. Why won't they tell me what's, for some children they can't, but for some children it's just uncomfortable. I don't want to tell you about that thing that made me feel really upset at school because I don't want to go there again in my head. And very often just playing it out in whatever way they need to is enough for them to finish the feeling, to regulate and let go of it. So they don't have to vocalize it and talk about it to be able to regulate it and move on from it. Then we've got the balloon breath, which is kind of a visualization that I do with the children, which really focuses on slowing the breathing. And it's where I'm getting them to kind of imagine they've got this balloon, it's any color they want it to be, and they're going to blow it up. And with each breath, they're going to fill that balloon with anything from their day that's, worried you or upset you, or maybe there's a person in there that made you feel sad. We're going to blow them all into the balloon, and we just keep going with the breath 4 or 5 times, and then you get them to visualize tying the balloon and letting go of it and just watching it get smaller and smaller and just go further away until it disappears behind a cloud. And then the daily guided meditation, I would say with this, if you haven't already found probably thousands of channels on YouTube that do them. We do have a channel on YouTube with some of our relaxing stories, which you can find, but I mean, there's millions. But again, as I said at the beginning, it's a skill. We work with children as young as nursery. We just finished some work with a nursery down the road, and you really, really can tell the children who have been doing this from a young age versus the children who start much older, because they're able to be still, not even still. Yeah, so relaxation doesn't always look like being still, and I do say that to the children. There are children who need to fidget, who need to walk around. Doesn't mean they're not calm, just looks different to how I might be calm or how somebody else might be calm. But if there's anything that you can start doing regularly, I would say try and do that. Because from that moment of pause, moment of whatever it looks like, focus, stillness, comes all of the skills that I think we're losing. Being able to be bored, and with that boredom comes creativity, being able to sit and focus and get something done and see it through to the end, being able to be resilient. If something doesn't go well, and then, okay, well, I'm just going to try again, or I'm going to try and do it a different way. All of those skills are things that we can kind of start to be growing in children. Okay, I think it might be. One last bit. This is just on massage and touch, which is just a part of our sessions. Touch is really, really important. It's great for the nervous system because of how it calms us. And children, especially babies, need to be held, need to be touched. It's the first sense to develop in children. And it's really important to how their brain then goes on to develop. So we incorporate peer massage, as I said before, completely voluntary. Children do not have to join in with it. It's all done on whether they feel comfortable with it. And we talk a lot about, what saying yes and what saying no means. Can I say yes and then can I change my mind? Will my partner listen to me? Will they touch me in a respectful way? And I think, it's all lessons that children can then apply to other things in life, with respect and understanding that my body is my body and personal space and consent. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of the Happy Human Project. I'm going to stop sharing this now. I don't think I've put my... So, yeah, let me just stop that. If there are any questions, because I don't think we have time for... No, my Zoom's going to throw us out in about a minute. If you have any questions about what we do, how we do it, why has my son been chosen, what would a holiday camp look like versus after school club, you're most welcome to get in touch. My email is hello@happyhumanproject.co.uk. This is, I mean, this is like my baby, so I could talk about it all day long, but so any questions, please do just get in touch. And I mean, wherever you're kind of coming from, I really hope that your children, if they haven't already, have a really good experience with us. That's the most important thing. As I said before, we really want the children to love coming, and to feel safe and to feel valued. And so I really hope that that's already being translated into the sessions from the activities that we're doing with them. And I will send out a recording of this video. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me. As I say, get in touch if you want to have a chat. Vanessa, yes, I will. I'll share the slides and I'm going to send out the recording as well, so you'll have it all there. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely Friday and hopefully a nice sunny weekend. Thanks, Stefania.